Hi everyone, we are on day 3 of our 90 days to taxes, and today we talked about what records you should be keeping in your business and how long you need to be keeping those. So very important to make sure that you are keeping records in your business. You want to keep records that are related to expenses. You want to keep records related to income. Those can include receipts, bills from any vendors, any sort of packing slips that come with inventory, any asset purchase information, so bills of lading for machinery, contracts for that machinery, all that good stuff. You want to be printing out your bank statements and your credit card statements that you should be reconciling to every single month. You should also be keeping monthly reports from your payment processing systems. So any sort of reports from things like Square, that kind of thing. You should be keeping all of that documentation. And you should be keeping that documentation for a long enough period of time. And so I generally recommend at least 7 years after that particular item has been claimed on a tax return. For example, if you have an expense that you just immediately write off on your tax return, you would keep the documentation associated with that expense for at least 7 years after you have filed and paid that tax. However, if you have an asset, for example, that you have purchased maybe 15 years ago, but it's still on your tax return because you're still using it, you need to keep that documentation on that asset for at least 7 years after you filed the last tax return that will have that asset on it. Okay, so if you sell that asset or if you dispose of that asset, keep that documentation for at least 7 years. If you are not filing a tax return, I don't recommend that. Or if you are filing a fraudulent tax return, again, not recommended. You need to keep those records indefinitely because the IRS can come and audit that tax year anytime they would like. That leaves the audit window wide open. So make sure that you're keeping that documentation. Softwares that I like to keep receipts in include things like Expensify. I've heard great things about Keeper. I do not recommend keeping them in things like QuickBooks because it can be difficult to pull them out of there. And you want to make sure that you're backing those up. If you want additional tips, I only have a couple of minutes on Shorts, but we have a video uploaded today that will give you additional information on what that looks like and what softwares we recommend. So I will see you guys tomorrow.